Hey book lovers, Victoria here and you're watching My Books and Me. Today I thought I would share with you guys 6 audiobooks that I definitely think you should check out. I've been really getting into audiobooks recently and these are 6 that I have really enjoyed, that have really added so much to the reading experience and that I think are just generally really good audiobooks. So if these are books that you either have not got around to reading yet or are wanting to reread, I definitely recommend the audiobook versions for it, especially as some of these are books that can be a little bit difficult to get into or a little bit intimidating, where I feel like the audiobook would be really helpful. The first one is Nevernight by J. Kristoff and Godsgrave actually as well. Both of these books are narrated by Halter Graham and I think he did such a fantastic job with bringing the narrator of this story to life. If you read these books, you'll know that the narrator is quite an interesting person. They're very sassy, sarcastic and dramatic and they add so much to an already brilliant story. And Halter Graham just did such a fantastic job voicing that narrator. He also did a really great job integrating the footnotes into the story. He made it flow within what was already written. He made the footnotes flow into the body of the story, but in a way that you could tell that these were the footnotes that he was narrating. I also love the voices he gave to most of the characters. Mia in particular was such an interesting character to hear him voice. And really just all of the characters, because there's some really interesting ones and he gives them all such a great voice that really complements their personality that we get to read about. I have to give the guy props because there are sex scenes in both of these books and I really wish I was in the room whenever anyone who had to narrate an audiobook with sex scenes. I just want to see them narrating these scenes, which I feel like are probably a little bit awkward to narrate, especially like a few in these ones where they are quite, I don't know, they're different. But I think he did a really good job. If you are someone who maybe struggled with these books or maybe a little bit intimidated by the size of them, I definitely know that they can be a little bit tricky to get into. They are a little bit dense, especially with the world building. I definitely recommend the audiobooks for these. They are fantastic. They're definitely one of my favorite audiobooks to have listened to. The books themselves are fantastic and the audiobook just brings them to life so much. Definitely recommended. The next book and well series is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas and this is narrated by Jessica Ikeda. Unfortunately, A Court of Wings and Ruin was not narrated by this same person, but the first two are fantastic. I really love the voice she gives to Feyre as the narrator of the story and how she gets us into the world. I also love the voices she gives to all the other characters, in particular Rhysand and the Inner Circle. They fit the characters so well and I think she really brings them to life with what we've got already written down in the book. As you guys all know, I absolutely loved this series and I actually ended up listening to most of it on audiobook because they were really good. As I said, the third one is a different person narrating it, which is a bit of a shame because I was really enjoying these first 2 books. The person who narrated the third book, she's alright, but definitely does not come up to the standards that Jessica did. If you are someone who maybe is intimidated by big books, this one's quite small, but as you will probably know, Akamath and Akawar are quite big books. They're like 600-700 pages long. I really recommend the audiobooks to help you get into them and it just adds so much to the atmosphere of these books and I just really enjoy hearing Feyre tell the story. I really enjoyed hearing Feyre narrate the story. I think the voice that she gave Feyre really fit the character and how she develops throughout the books. The next one is a recent one which I just really enjoyed because the audiobook just was amazing and that is I Hate My Selfie by Shane Dawson. Shane actually narrated the book and I think it just adds so much to the anecdotes that he tells. The way he's written them is very much how he would tell you the story himself, and if you are familiar with Shane via his channel and how he tells stories, then reading the book you could just imagine him telling you, but to actually listen to it adds so much more to the stories and makes them feel so much more real, as if Shane is actually telling you. And especially because some of the stories are things that are and because the stories are personal stories, I think it just adds so much more to being felt like you're being let into his life, and that he's you know, he's telling you his stories, and it was just really good. I'm really intrigued to listen to It Gets Worse. Reading this in general was really good, but to have him narrate it was just even better, because he is someone who does tell stories. He is someone who we get to watch and listen to him tell stories and talk and everything like that. I just think it went so well that you got to then listen to him telling you these stories that he's written down. Again, if you're a fan of Shane, I recommend not only the book itself, but the audiobook, because it's just so, I feel like it's so much more enjoyable to actually hear Shane telling you these stories. I couldn't do an audiobook recommendation video without mentioning Harry Potter. I love the Stephen Fry narration of these books. I haven't listened to the US version of them, but honestly I do not think anything can top Stephen Fry. The fact that firstly he is a British actor who is just got this beautiful voice to begin with, narrating this story. He just adds to the magic that is already Harry Potter, and the voices he gives to all these characters and how he differentiates between all of them, especially in scenes where there are so many characters present and sort of all talking, and how you can just know instantly which character he is voicing and when, and I just think he did such a fantastic job, and as I said, making it so much more magical and immersive. I mean, this series is already magical and immersive, but to have Stephen Fry add to that is just so amazing. And I also love the fact that some of the voices he does for the characters are very similar to the ones we get in the movies. I've only listened to Philosopher's Stone and Deathly Hallows. I hope at some point in the future I'll get my chance to listen to them all, but if you love Harry Potter and you haven't listened to the audiobooks yet, seriously go out and get one of them at least and listen to them. If you've only listened to the US version, I definitely recommend listening to the UK version. I just think it just, I mean, like I said, I haven't listened to the US versions, but I do not think you can top the magical and awesomeness that is Stephen Fry. I also had to mention the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. These are narrated by Jesse Bernstein, and he does such a fantastic job at narrating Percy, and I feel like he just does so much for Percy, because if you've read these books you know that like Percy is just such a fun narrator in what Rick Riordan has already written, but to actually hear Jesse Bernstein voice it and just give this really cool and very, I think, real voice to Percy, I couldn't, like, listening to it, I don't think I can imagine Percy speaking any other way. I also just love, again, in general, the voices he gives to all the other characters, particularly Annabeth Grover and Tyson. I just really think he brings to life the narrator that is Percy, and I really actually like listening to books where it is a first-person narration and you get to actually then experience like a voice of that person telling you the story, rather than just like a narrator or just the story itself. But yeah, if you're a fan of Percy Jackson, I definitely recommend checking out the audiobooks. If you haven't read these books yet, definitely give them a go. I don't know if Jesse Bernstein ended up doing any more Rick Riordan books. I feel like he probably didn't, because he was the voice of Percy in here, but he might have. I kind of hope he does, because I definitely plan on listening to all of them if he has. He's just a really great narrator. Finally, the last one is another YouTuber book, and I had to include this because the audiobook for this is just as fun as the book itself, and that is The Amazing Book Is Not on Fire by Dan and Phil. This is narrated by both Dan and Phil, and what I love most about it is the fact that they ad-lib quite a lot of stuff. They have little conversations between chapters. They add so much that isn't written down, and a lot of it is things that usually it might be cut from the audiobook. It might be in a blooper thing. And even in books where you get multiple narrators for maybe different characters and sections and things like that, you know, that's just straight up what is written. This goes beyond what is written in the book, and because this book is quite a visual book, this page in particular is one I remember really well. They actually describe what's on these pages. So it goes something like, they say on the left is Dan's black wardrobe, and then on the right is Phil's rainbow wardrobe, kind of thing. I love getting to the pages where they do talk about the visuals. It's not all of the complete photo pages, but it's definitely a number of them where they're talking visually, or even just little bits on some of the pages. And it's just really great to not only hear them narrate this in general, but to add to it. And it's just a really fun audiobook. I read half of this book before I went back and listened to the whole thing on audiobook because it was just so fun. And if you're a fan of Dan and Phil, I think it is a must listen. And again, I think it's just interesting to listen to it and read along and just sort of see where they add little tidbits and little extras that I feel like are kind of exclusive. So if you want to have like a little bit more explanation or a little bit like a little bonus stories or like little bonus comments, like you kind of have to listen to the audiobook, but it's really, really fun. 6 audiobook recommendations I'm giving to you guys. As I said, I've been really getting into audiobooks recently, particularly because it means I can keep reading books while I'm doing other things. Sometimes I get really busy where I don't end up reading a book for like a week or two, and I feel really bad because I can't sit down and dedicate like hours upon hours reading. But then I also like, because while I would love to sit down and dedicate hours and hours to reading, I have other things I need to do, and I feel bad for then dedicating heaps of time to them because I'm not reading enough. But I've been really loving audiobooks. Let me know in the comments below some of your favorite audiobooks and ones I need to check out. There are definitely some that I am eyeing off that I will probably be listening to in the future. I never really thought I would get into audiobooks, but I have definitely been more recently, and I'm really, really loving it. So as I said, let me know some of your favorites for me to check out. Definitely check out some of these. Definitely check out some of these because they are fantastic. Not only are they amazing stories, but the audiobooks are amazing. I'm going to link to my blog reviews for these books so you can check out my general thoughts on them as well. That is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week with another video. Bye!